fast. So I've been in computers since high school, and that was when they were first coming out with the old TSR 80s and the old big huge floppy disks and all of that stuff. Fast forward, went into the military, was in the military for 6 years, did computing in the military around the nuclear power program for the Navy, and then got out, went to university, ended up in mechanical engineering. But as I was doing mechanical engineering to get my way through school, I started a traditional MSP. I was doing security, networking, servers, infrastructure, and did that through my life as a student. Once I got done, I went to work for one of my clients as a mechanical engineer, but then that lasted about 6 months and I quickly got back into systems. They had some old mini mainframe stuff that they needed to get rid of. We brought in some new, it was a manufacturing company. We brought in some new software, deployed it throughout their organization for everything from inventory and shop floor control to, accounting and AR and AP and that kind of stuff. Fast forward a little bit further, I left that company, went to work for an ERP consultancy. And so I helped companies deploy these large ERP systems. While I was working, and this was probably mid-90s, while I was working for this ERP consultancy, I was over their technical services division. The owner came to me and said, "Hey, there's this new thing called Salesforce automation. Would you take a group of our developers and go build a product into our ERP suite? Because we don't have one." And so we did. And so at the very beginning, I had experience with ERP systems, with enterprise companies, with consulting, software development. And now I got into probably 90, I want to say it's probably 98, 99, got into what then became CRM. Worked in that industry for a number of years. It was probably 3 or 4 years developing this integrated ERP/CRM system. That company went sideways. I think it was 2002-ish, the .com crash happened, 2002 in that time frame, and all of IT just kind of imploded right after the year 2000 for a little while. And I found myself without a job, and Microsoft called me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in, we have a new product called Microsoft CRM. It's just hitting the street. Would you be interested in being a supplier, vendor, partner, helping us push out this new product called Microsoft CRM?" So long story short, through one happenstance after the other, I ended up courted by Microsoft to help push their Microsoft CRM product forward. And I've never changed since then. And that was probably 25 years ago.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you took the long way around, because I kept trying to figure out, how am I going to ask you, what does it take to get Microsoft to call you? And I couldn't figure out the best way to ask that. So that has a good a ring to it. Now, I mean, when they called, what was your thought? I mean, you had to think, this can't be Microsoft, right?
Yeah, I did actually, but it also kind of clicked, because their product, I would say at that time, was probably 2 or 3 years behind Salesforce.com. So Salesforce.com was already established. It was already kind of making waves, but I'd always just been a Microsoft person. I always just, back when I was developing this other product, we were supporting Oracle, we were supporting SQL Server, we were supporting a number of different database platforms. And the Microsoft solutions were always easier to manage. They were always, easier to train other people on. Where, for example, Oracle was always extremely difficult. Their tools were very high powered, but they just weren't as easy to use. And so you had to really be dedicated to things in a different way. And so I just have always liked Microsoft products. and we can debate all day long whether that's a good position or bad position, but I've always just been there. And so when they did call, I'm like, yeah, I know your product is challenging because it's new. If you've ever dealt with a Microsoft 1.0 product, you know what I'm talking about. And so they called and they just positioned it as, hey, we're looking for partners. And I felt honored. I felt lucky. And for the first 2 or 3 years of business, Microsoft was sending us leads, which doesn't hurt.
Nice.
Because, if you get Microsoft to refer you in to something, you probably have an 80% success rate, so that's pretty darn good.
Okay.